Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tate Modern. My name's Ted McDonald-Toone, and I'm the Head of International Partnerships here at Tate. But I'm also wearing a second metaphorical hat this evening, as I'm a member of the Advisory Board of the Australia Studies Institute at King's College London. As we gather tonight in the city from which the colonisation of the lands now known as Australia was planned, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of country throughout Australia. We pay our respects to elders past and present, and we acknowledge the enduring connection of Indigenous people across Australia to their unceded lands. In particular tonight, we pay our respects to the traditional owners of Kngwarray's country. Before we introduce tonight's lecture, I'd also like to thank some people without whom the Emily Kngwarray exhibition, which is on display at the moment upstairs, and I'm hoping if you haven't seen it already, which I think many of us will have, then you will do so very soon. But I'd like to thank a group of people without whom the exhibition would not have been possible to bring to Tate Modern. First of all, the Amudjara community for their support and enabling of this really, really important exhibition. Secondly, our partners at the National Gallery of Australia and Wesfarmers Arts, and our supporter Foundation Opal. We're also grateful for additional support from Bloomberg Philanthropies, the Emily Kngwarray Exhibition Supporters Circle, Tate International Council, Tate Patrons, Tate Americas Foundation, National Gallery of Australia Foundation, and Tate members. The Hyundai Tate Research Centre Transnational, in partnership with Hyundai Motor, also provided support for key scholarship and research on the exhibition. Wearing my Tate hat, I would also like to thank the Australia Studies Institute at King's College London for working in partnership with Tate and making this event possible. And I'm now delighted to introduce Professor Agnieszka Sobczynska, Director of the Australia Studies Institute, to give more context on the lecture and the Institute, and to introduce our amazing Curator Extraordinaire and presenter of the 2025 Menzies Lecture, Kelli.
Thank you, Ted. As Ted said, my name is Agnieszka Sobczynska. I'm Professor of Global History and the Director of the Australia Studies Institute at King's College London. Founded in 1982, the Australia Studies Institute is the oldest and most established academic institute for the study of Australia in Europe. We're a vibrant scholarly community, encouraging academic research on many facets of Australian society, politics and culture, organised around the theme Global Australia. We nurture research across disciplines, encouraging partnerships for exploratory research between British and Australian academics. We pursue research ourselves, including on the history of Australian childhood, Australian and global feminism, and Australia's place in the global international development system. Please take a minute now, if you can, to join our mailing list and to keep up to date with what we're up to. We also bring out some of the most fascinating speakers from Australia for public lectures, panels and other events. We have another one after today coming soon, so I encourage you to register for our upcoming Reese lecture on the 13th of November, which will be delivered by Alicia Simmons on the topic of courting and intimate history of love and the law. For over 25 years, the Menzies Lecture has been the premier event in the academic calendar for those studying Australia in the UK. Previous Menzies lecturers have included eminent scholars and public figures, including Michael Kirby, Mark Latham, Glenn Davis, and Frank Bongiorno. Tonight, we are privileged to hear from Dr. Kelli Cole. Kelli is a Warramunga and Luritja woman from Central Australia and an independent curator. Prior to that, she was curator of special projects at the National Gallery of Australia. Since her commencement in 2007, she's worked at the gallery. She worked on many projects, including all 4 National Indigenous Art Triennials, and was instrumental in the development of the National Gallery's First Nations Art Gallery in 2010. Kelli has written on various aspects of First Nations and has publications in Australia and internationally. She's also worked closely with Hetty Perkins as part of the curatorial team for the 4th National Indigenous Art Triennial ceremony in 2022. She is, of course, lead curator for the Tate Modern exhibition, Emily Kngwarray, Building upon the 2023 National Gallery of Australia exhibition she co-curated with Hetty Perkins. We are thrilled to be supporting tonight's event in partnership with Tate Modern. So please welcome Kelli Cole to deliver the 2025 Menzies lecture, The Life of Emily Kngwarray.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kelli Cole and I'm a Warramungalurja woman from Central Australia. I would like to begin by acknowledging all First Nations people who are attending this evening tonight and acknowledge that I will be speaking on behalf of the Yalda and the Amajita people. I pay my respect to the elders, past and present, and to their ancestors that have guided them and continue to. It is a profound honour to share time with you today, exploring the universe contained within the art of Emily Kngwarray. Emily's work radiates directly, powerfully from her country, Alokra. Alokra lies on the traditional boundaries of the Yalda and the Amajita people and is situated in the Sandover region of the Northern Territory, 365 kilometres northeast of Ubuntu, Alice Springs. It is the heart of Central Australia. The region is remarkable. Unlike many other Aboriginal communities that emerged from former missions or government-run settlements, Utopia, formerly a pastoral station, stands apart. It was established through autonomous activism during the early land rights movement and reclaimed by Aboriginal people who had never fully dispossessed of their lands. The Yalda and the Amajita people of the Sandover region live across more than 15 outstations and homelands, each connected to a specific site and holding customary claim to the country. Emily Kngwarray is inarguably one of Australia's most important First Nations artists. Her emergence onto the contemporary art scene in the early 1990s quickly cemented her reputation as a significant figure, a reputation that has only grown since. Born around 1914 on her country, Alokra, she grew up in the bush during a time when her ancestral lands had seen very little outside contact. To her family, she was known as Karma. It is important to note that the name Emily was not given to her at birth. It was a name imposed upon her by someone who possibly could not say her Aboriginal name. The seamlessly small details often offer us a crucial insight into understanding her art. As Emily Kngwarray explained, this is what she painted, whether in wax or acrylic. Much like the intricate vines of the Nurla, which is the pencil yam, what you see on the surface of her art is only a fraction of the story. Her works possess subterranean depths and rich cultural roots that are not immediately visible, but are deeply felt and known. This sensation is amplified by the sheer power and rigour evident in her mark-making, underscoring the reflective intentionality behind her brushstroke. But before I really begin this lecture, I want to acknowledge the friends and colleagues who have worked tirelessly beside me from the very beginning. Their research, insight and unwavering support are deeply embedded in this lecture. The work would not have been possible without our collective effort. Firstly, my dear friend and colleague and co-curator of the Emily Kngwarray exhibition at the National Gallery of Australia, Hetty Perkins. Hetty is a Kalkadoon and Aranda woman and the daughter of the famous activist Charles Perkins. From the very beginning, Hetty and I would sit side by side in Ubuntu, Alice Springs, writing consecutive nights until 3 a.m, racing to meet a publication deadline, only to wake up early in the morning, main-veining coffee and starting all over again. Your words and your wisdom have been my saving grace. To Dr. Stephen Gilchrist, a Yamaji man from North-Western Australia, your academic brilliance never ceases to amaze me. Your encouraging and gentle nature is a breath of fresh air, especially when we were so close to the finish line, but yet running on empty. Dr. Jenny Green, you are an inspiration. You have been the custodian of much of Emily Kngwarray has shared with you. You have treated it all with deep respect. Her words, her songs, her stories, which you have safeguarded for decades. You entrusted these to myself and Hetty for the inclusion of this exhibition and the publication. We are grateful for you because this has made the exhibition so much more profoundly enriching. I know the family joins me in thanking you for giving so much of yourself and of what Kngwarray gave you in a keepsake to this exhibition. I also want to thank my Tate curators, Charmaine Toe, Genevieve Barton and Hannah Goldsky. You have worked beside us in the most amazing fashion. You have supported me and Yorta adjunct curator Kimberly Moulton from all the time that we have been here. And you've helped us deliver an amazing exhibition here at the Tate Modern in London. But most importantly, without the support of Emily Kngwarray as a family, the essence of this exhibition would not be possible. At the inception of Kngwarray's exhibition, we decided to shift gears, moving from consultation to genuine collaboration. Within the first few meetings with family and community on country back in 1992, it became apparent that the traditional model of consultation was not enough. True collaboration meant working actively and inclusively with community members on all aspects of the exhibition, developing the texts, ensuring their voices were central, and shaping discussions around the artwork, images, and visual language used throughout this exhibition and publication. Our aim was for this exhibition to be a shared endeavour, reflecting not only on academic interpretations, but also the living cultural knowledge held by Kngwarray's descendants. By bringing together this rigorous research, respectful dialogue, and authentic collaboration grounded in First Nations perspective, we sought to present Emily Kngwarray's extraordinary work in a way that honours her artistic brilliance, celebrates her cultural legacy, and offers audience a deeper understanding of her pivotal place within Australian global art history and in her country. My sincere thanks goes to Josie Pajara Kunos, Barbara, Margaret, Melissa, Louisa, and Patsy Kngwarray, and also to Jeddah, Judy, Maureen, Jennifer Purvis Kngwarray. As Jeddah says, you are welcome to come and look at these paintings. Old Woman Karma's paintings on a local country is really important for us. It is always alive. The old woman's paintings have their origins in country, and we hope you'll enjoy looking at them. Listen to the stories she tells and the women's songs she sings. So I just quickly put up this map. I mean, you heard me introduce myself. So I am a Warramungalurija woman. I am from Central Australia. The Yaura and the Amajara people's country are just to the north and south of my country. So you can see in Central Australia, in the middle, there's a big blue sort of body, and that is the Aranda people. So I live on Aranda lands in Mbantua, but the north of that is the Yaura and Amajara country, Emily's country. So we look at this map also. So, you know, colonisation happened. We had over 500 different languages spoken, and then also over 350 plus dialects. Today, there are about 39 languages that are fluent, and now we're in our stages of revival and learning languages. I'm very privileged to live in Mbantua and have grown up in Alice Springs because the Aranda language has been a thriving language and has continued to be spoken today. Although that is not my language, it is a language that I speak because of where I live. This next map is a closer map or a view of Kngwarray's country. So you can see just the circle around it. So Ayaura and Amajara, and there you'll see Alokra and Anangkra, the two countries that I'll be speaking about today. Emily began painting on canvas relatively late in life, but quickly became one of Australia's most significant contemporary artists. Her style evolved from early batiks and large, vibrant canvases, characterised by layers of colour, energetic lines and gestural marks. Her paintings represented the seasons, the cycle of life, the dreamings associated with her country, and the overall energy and spirit of country. She often depicted the patterns of the seeds, plants and water soakages and secret springs. Kngwarray's works broke down many barriers in the art world and achieved significant international acclaim. Her unique visual language, while rooted in a cultural knowledge, resonated with the contemporary art movement. She demonstrated the power and complexity of Aboriginal perspective on country and spirituality in the modern context. Her art practices was incredibly diverse, spanning ancient traditions to contemporary innovation. While each practice has its unique characteristics, they all deeply connected to her country of Alokra and its cultural knowledge and the enduring strength of identity. They serve not as an artistic expression, but also as a vital form of communication and cultural preservation. Alokra, we must begin here. not just a landscape, but a living country. Hidden springs, shelters, and the enduring presence of the ancestor, tangible in Awilya, women's ceremonial song and dance. It's where Emily Kngwarray was born early in the 20th century. Her life, her spirit was intrinsically tied to this country. Even a ceremonial pierced septum reflecting the great rock art or the sky cave. She lived through the harsh realities of colonial frontier, the consolidation of pastoralism, the removal of country and domestic and pastoral servitude. Payment for station work were paid in rations. Tea, flour, sugar, a form of slavery. Her descendants live here still, maintaining the connection. This deep bond between person and place is the absolute foundation of her art. Kngwarray's public artistic journey gained momentum in the 1970s when Jennifer Green expanded literacy classes, introduced textile dyeing, critically supported by Julia Murray, the founding coordinator of the Utopia Batik Group. Kngwarray was its most senior member. She embraced the batik in a charismatic, raw energy. The same force Jennifer saw when she taught Kngwarray how to drive. Accelerator flat, eyes shut, laughing down the airstrip. She wasn't careful. She incorporated the accidental with the humour and certainty. The bush studios were outdoor burrow sheds, open fires, melting wax and old hubcaps, fabrics boiled in flour drums, hung on fences at soakage board to dry. Despite the laborious process, and as Kngwarray once said, it was a waste of too much rinso or washing powder. She decided that she loved the fluidity and the lightness and the spontaneity, but she also didn't like washing and rewashing the batiks. That she left to the younger women. Look at the power in these early batiks, the complex maps of a Lolkra and a Nunkra, depicting Anurla, the pencil yam, its karma seed and its entire life cycle. So these are really wonderful early images that I was lucky to get from Dr. Jenny Green. Jenny Green, as I said, went out to Utopia in the early 70s and spent time working with Kngwarray and the rest of the Utopia ladies. So she was there to teach sort of adult education classes and, you know, arithmetic, learning to count the rations, the money that you got, and also, you know, learning to write your name. So Kngwarray, Emily only ever spelt her name with Emily. She didn't go beyond that. But that was a big thing for her because in those days, our Aboriginal people just had to sign their name with a cross. So Emily learnt to write her name and she was very proud of that moment. Julia Murray, who was also one of the coordinators out there, noted they encouraged the women to depict their own images of country. Kngwarray took this to heart, creating encyclopedia renderings, sharing the beauty and the power of a Lolkra in this new medium. The sometimes abstracted and the sometimes linear representation jostling on the fabric, trying to fight for its own right. This is a wonderful depiction of a work that is in the Janet Holmes Court collection. So in this work here, we have the extraordinary printy lizards. What I really love about this early batik is the border that you see around the outside of it. Some of the women decided to do these extraordinary borders, but Emily Kngwarray definitely did. And when you go into the exhibition, it's not noted in any of my slides, but if you do get to see the side of her paintings, particularly in the earlier works from 1990 to 92, there's extraordinary little stripes on the edges of the canvas. And it's almost like she's putting that awulya, that women's ceremony, onto the paintings, because these paintings are also ceremonial paintings and they are about country. So she started off doing them within her batiks and then went on to do them in a couple of her canvases. This is just another beautiful depiction or one of her earlier batiks that she did, and also in the Janet Holmes Court collection. There came a pivotal moment in the late 1980s. The Central Australia Media Association, known as CAMA, CAAMA, took over the management of the Utopia Batik Group. Rodney Gooch, CAMA's visionary retail manager, supported by the community leader, Annie Doris Stewart Renahan, or also Kngwarray, conceived projects introducing different media. Following a batik collection, Rodney commissioned the landmark 1988-89 summer project, Utopia Women's Paintings. It was also in the Janet Holmes Court collection. 81 paintings by Utopia women using canvas and acrylic, the first of many. So this is also a wonderful display at the National Gallery of Australia of the 81 works of the summer project. Both Hetty and I really wanted to include it in the first exhibition, because one thing we noted is Emily is an Amajita woman, her country is a Lolkra. Right beside a Lolkra is the country called Kngwarray country, and they are Ayawda women. So there's a Majida, which Emily is, and Ayawda ladies right next door. These two countries are considered sibling countries. It is the story of the Emu brothers. So Kngwarray, the older Emu sibling, and Lolkra, which is Emily's country, is a younger Emu sibling. So by always doing exhibitions just with Kngwarray, you're sort of severing that country and that story. So to make sure that we brought those two countries and that story back together, we wanted to include this major work of the 81 works in the series. So it was a project, like I said, that was facilitated by Rodney Gooch. Kngwarray created her first painting called Emu Woman. This wasn't just a technical shift, it was a watershed moment, unleashing her established visual language onto a new surface, with a medium allowing for a different scale, intimacy and texture. The title itself is a powerful declaration, Emu Woman, proclaiming her custodial right, her identity, her deep connection to the Emu dreaming, the country of a Lolkra. Emu Woman 1988-89 onwards, Kngwarray developed as a painter and she was explosive. Her style evolved rapidly, yet always rooted in a Lolkra. Look closely at Emu Woman, those graphic branch-like forms identified as a dukwa, which are the bush plant favoured by the emu. The work indicates the way the emu bird is butchered and prepared for a meal in a correct way accordance to cultural law. Painting depicts the ribs and the neck. Also noted are the emu's tracks hidden within the skins of the dot, yellow representing the emu fat and red for the half-cooked, well-prepared meat. This was an extraordinary work. So the summer series was done in 88 and 89, and the reason we say those dates is Rodney Gooch went out in December of 1988 and delivered 100 canvases to the 15 different outstations in the Utopia region, and in February 1998 he went and collected 81 of those works. They were first displayed in Sydney at the S.H. Irwin Gallery. And what really stood out was this wonderful work by Emu Woman was selected for all the marketing and the posters. From the very moment Kngwarray painted, even a part of a community group, her work stood out from the rest. And I must say, when we displayed this body of work, it was the first time it had ever been displayed together since it was first displayed in 1989. At the S.H. Irwin exhibition, and I'm really proud that our director, at first the director of the National Gallery, said everyone would be confused that all of these works were Emily Kngwarray's, and they weren't as great. I just said they are customary cultural stories and they should be all together and they belong as one story. So really exciting to have this body of work together. Kngwarray revisited themes: the emu, the yam, the intange, the edible seeds, and also Willia design, but the execution transformed. Intange Dreaming 1989, acquired early by the National Gallery Australia, retains the traces of the batik technician, but bursts with layers and dots, yellow, black, red, white seeds articulating familiar plant motifs. This painting is an extraordinary work. It's been in the National Gallery collection. I was fortunate to work at the National Gallery for 17 years and curated this work into many exhibitions, and it was a privilege to actually curate this into her solo exhibition. As Kngwarray's work entered the mainstream art world, it generated much critical discourse and forced a reckoning. The familiarity of acrylic on canvas spoke a dialect of modernism, allowing her entry. Art historians, such as Rex Butler, observed her work looked familiar enough to critics, resembling art expressionism, perhaps seems a license of a new language when talked about Aboriginal art. But to their credit, many Australian art historians, curators, anthropologists did grapple with the limit of existing art historical languages, attempting serious engagement with her work. This is a wonderful work that is from the National Gallery of Victoria's collection. It's Karma. So when we look at her name, Emily Karma Kngwarray, Emily, as I said, was a name given to her probably when she was about 12 to 13 years old, we're not too sure, but by a station owner who could not say her name. Karma is the name that she was given to at birth from her grandfather. And Kngwarray is what we call a skin classification name. It's a name that is, there are 8 different names within the Amajara and Ayawara people, and it's the way that you fit within society or within your community. So this wonderful work here is depicting the extraordinary karma seeds. And the karma seeds, you've got the plant of the nula, so you've got the vine on the top, then you have these amazing roots that go down, and on the root is this tiny little seed. So it sort of flowers on the top, or seeds on the top, and then seeds under the ground, and that's where she gets her name from, Karma. And so when you see her depicting paintings such as this, there is this sort of, resonance, there is this pride. This is, a portrait of Emily Karma Kngwarray. I'll just go back to the art historical context and stuff. However, despite genuine attempts at intellectual understanding, complacent categorisation and reductive placeholders abounded. Roger Benjamin argued persuasively that identifying modernist tropes in Indigenous art is often a Eurocentric projection. He talks about trafficking difference into sameness. So if you want to talk about, constantly putting Kngwarray back into the modernist abstract instead of actually accepting her for who she was as a First Nation woman depicting her country. Ali Kngwarray Baker, is a Miriam woman from South Australia and a leading First Nation academic. She asked Indigenous artists and scholars to create and claim our own theological ground rather than reacting and retracing the other modern tropes. So pretty much what Ali is saying as a First Nations person, let's have our own language when we are talking about our works. We do not have to follow, the art history context. Historically, Indigenous art has had a force, an expansion within the Western definition, and institutions demonstrating the small or the conceptual categories permitted. The critical analysis around Kngwarray was sometimes sophisticated, sometimes naive, occasionally insulting. Critics examined her gender, her indigeneity, her culture, and her practice. And there was times when they also referred to her as a barren woman. It was all these sorts of hideous sort of moments when Kngwarray was coming to be that she had to actually hear. It was unuseful to hear these conversations, but regardless, critics for quite some time decided that that's how they would refer to Kngwarray because they didn't quite understand her work. Accreditation by major institution has been important. Kngwarray was rightly celebrated with major solo exhibitions across Australia. Her work travelled internationally to Japan and significantly in the Venice Biennale, both in 1997 and in 2015. In 1997, it was curated by 2 First Nations curators, Hetty Perkins, again, and Dr. Brenda Croft. She was exhibited alongside one-year artist Judy Watson and also Auntie Yvonne Kumatri, a Ngarrindjeri woman born in southern Riverina region in South Australia. These high-level presentations undeniably contributed to her legacy and the cultural capital of Indigenous art globally. But we must question the idea of only these institutions holding legitimising power, or the power is necessity for Indigenous art. Is it a necessity of Indigenous art? Almost 30 years after her death, the world is better equipped to understand Indigenous art. It is ready self-possession its own value, grounded in its own intellectual, cultural and political genealogy. The inclusion is not always equity. Anthropologist Fred Myers, writing about Western desert painters, described encountering the radical difference. This applies equally to Kngwarray's Central Australia practice. Attending to this difference requires acknowledging an Indigenous complex of social relations and cultural coordinates, privileging Indigenous ways of seeing, being and knowing. Quite simply, what came out of Emily Kngwarray came out of country. Kngwarray herself expressed frustration with the art world, with its inability to speak her language. Our understanding must strive to be on her terms, celebrating the local Amajara specificity, her essentialising it, but also us refining it. So these works here were in the 1997 Venice Biennale. It was called Fluid. It was a beautiful exhibition that, along with two other major First Nations women, as I mentioned, Anna-Yvonne Kumatri and Judy Watson. They're also in the Tate Modern exhibition. And when you're actually standing in these rooms, you feel the power of these works. They're not just stripes on canvases. These are the application of body paint. So Kngwarray would, paint many young women prior to painting herself. As I said, she was one of the most senior women, Alokra women. She was well and truly into her late 80s when she passed. But when you look at these works, it's that brushstroke across from the chest to the other side of the chest, down your arms, and also along your breast. And so when you actually see these works in person, you feel the rhythm of the wulia, or the ceremony, and these works just pulsate with energy. So this brings us back to the work itself and how it apprehends the visual richness. From 1990 to 1993, her paintings often became larger, filled with stippled colours, motifs like yam tubulars, or the emu tracks submerged beneath billowing clouds of dots. Works were filled with dense layers of cream, brown, green, pale orange dots, built upon a linear overlayer, evoking the profusion of seeds and range. Larger pixelated dots capturing seasonal change, wildflowers carpeting Alokra country. So these two works from back from 89. The reason that I've selected these works, although I am going out of order, usually I do chronology, but these works were sort of, I guess, the most comparison to Western desert painting. So if anyone knows 1997, so 1971 to 73 is when the Papunya men, the Western desert artists, started painting. It was meant to be the first movement, or captured the first movement in art movement in Australia. And the works sort of depicted these extraordinary mapping of country. And so when we're looking at Kngwarray's work, the work to the left, I'm terrible, Ankara or Emu. So it is the tracks of the emu that are as they go around Alokra country. And this gorgeous work here is Alokra, Old Man, Emu and Baby. So going back to that story of the Alokra country and the Ananka country, those two sibling countries, it is about the male emus that look after the emu chicks, and they always have the two older males with the young chicks, and then the circling of other young male, juvenile males to look after the emu chicks. So this is just a wonderful mapping of country and just a different, way of looking at Kngwarray's works. So again, she started off with these sort of dotting over layers of linear works underneath, and then eventually she just totally hides those lines. So the earlier lines were, either maps of country or also the ranula, the pencil yam. So her technique owed more to painting ochre on body for a wulia, the rhythm of song verses, than the meticulous structure of the Western desert dotting that Fred Myers encountered. It connected to the women's sand drawings. Her paintings were painted in a fluid and rapid manner. It was a way her fingertips left multiple indentations representing connections to things like bush foods and body paint and on canvas. So here I'm referring to the last works with the Western Desert works that Fred Myers talks about. I'm going to jump here. The monumental 22 Alokra Suite is a kaleidoscopic view, a multifaceted portrait of a sentient land, rock faces, rock holes, grasslands, waterways, recognised intimately by her family. This high-keyed colour captured seasonal shifts, the changing of light throughout the day. This was her pièce de résistance, a monumental work of significance. This is a work in the National Gallery of Australia collection. Again, lucky enough over the years to have curated this work into so many different exhibitions. What was interesting for me, when you see this work in previous hangs, it was never a one, so it's 22 panels. And so for this exhibition, or for the National Gallery exhibition prior to bringing it to the Tate, we decided to display this work as just one large work. It is an extraordinary work. It is just a depiction of Alokra. When you are in Alokra, and I've been privileged enough to go there a couple of times, there is the change of the day. In Central Australia, our skies are endless, and our country, our rock is red and vibrant. And when you actually see this work, you understand how Kngwarray is so captured by her country and the way she depicts her country in such pride. It really is an extraordinary work. So this wonderful work here is My Country 1993. It was made at the same time, around the same year as a Alokra suite, but offers a different viewpoint. The landscape is punctuated by fine black dotting around a central rondelle, identified by the family as the Sky Cave. So it was really interesting when we saw this painting. This painting is in a private collection, and when we were looking at selecting works for both exhibitions, we obviously got to see thousands of Kngwarray's paintings. It is said that she painted 2,000 to 3,000. No one really knows, and the reason that is Kngwarray painted for quite a few different dealers. Rightfully so. She had her own autonomy. She could paint where she wanted. There was no art centre in Utopia at the time. And so that number is not really known, but we know that she definitely painted in the thousands. So we got to see this extraordinary painting, and when we took a photo of this painting back during that consultation to family, it was the family who identified the extraordinary dotting almost in the centre as the cave. Interesting enough for us as well, when we looked at the paperwork for this painting, it actually says the name of the Sky Cave, and there aren't any other paintings that we've ever come across that actually refer to that specific site that paint that Sky Cave at the top of a Alokra. So this was a really, really special painting for us to have in the exhibition, and it's here at the Tate. Okay, Anurla. So remember her name, Karma, also pencil yam. So here is a photo that I took of the pencil yam when I was back in Utopia. What you see on the surface is only the beginning. The pencil yam, the seed, it signifies potential, germination, proliferation, nourishment. The yam's offerings, modest staples, signifies the power of ceremony, song, and interconnection. The yam is associated with growth and fertility related to ceremony, which is to continue its growth. The women are so connected to this plant, it's extraordinary. Whenever you're driving along Utopia, the roads, if this plant is out and flourishing, the women will make you stop and you'll sit there and dig. So what is on the surface, like I said, is these vines that go down. Then there's a seed of Kngwarray, and then there's this big tuber, which is like a root. And that is the root that everyone loves and feasts on. As Hetty Perkins observes, they are like the fluid rivers of the spiritual power. They sustain and nurture Aboriginal people and the land. By inscribing these designs of the pencil yam, Kngwarray becomes enmeshed in the expansive system of belonging, realising the promise of the ancestors. If you give back to the ancestors with a wulya, song and dance, the ancestors will give to you. Let's revisit the batik. For over a decade, Kngwarray forged her public iconography through this medium. Yet perhaps because of its association with craft, batik is often deliberately or inadvertently written out of the accounts of favouring a neat, unproblematic modernist trajectory towards fine art painting. But Kngwarray herself didn't oppose or endorse these hierarchies. Both mediums convey the thin boundary realm of the physical and the spiritual. Both elaborated imaginary designs drawn in the sand. Both spring from the same well-being of creativity. The same the same connection to country, ignoring the batik's years, critically misunderstands her practice. And this is something that takes place when you go to do Kngwarray exhibitions or even display her works. Generally, people will go to her paintings first as the highest medium, and the batiks are sort of something that are left to be a part of a group exhibition. But we were really fortunate in our exhibitions to get quite a significant amount of Kngwarray's batiks to display. I'd love to talk about the first work. So the first work that you see at the beginning, yellow and green, was done in 1977. It is one of the first batiks that Emily Kngwarray did. It is on cotton, so meaning that they were practicing before they went to the expensive medium of silk. When you look at this work, there's a photo in our publication of Kngwarray making this work, and she's got it across her lap, and there's a photo of Kngwarray learning how to write. And this really extraordinary sort of scripture, the way that she has this cursive writing is almost the way that when she had this batik across her lap, you can see the movement as if she was learning to write her name. So it was really important for us to get this work. And it is in Julia Murray. So I mentioned Julia Murray, the first coordinator of the Batik, Utopia Batik group. This belongs to her, and it was really lovely that she loaned this work for this exhibition. So there's just other depictions of, the second one is a National Gallery work, and it is maps of Alokra. So again, Emily Kngwarray, prior to meeting Whitefella for the first time when she was about 13 years old, so remember she's born in 1914, she mapped and walked across that country and knew every part of her country, every spring, every way that she walked. And these are just beautiful topographical maps of her country. Around 1994, another abrupt stylistic turn. The so-called striped paintings, a revolutionary departure. Bold lines akin to the striped body paints departed into women's bodies of Awilya. Over multiple panels reflecting the collective nature of ceremony. Their gesture physically evoke ceremonial rhythm. Black on white initially, then black on white on canvas, on paper, initially, then canvas. Monochrome, red, yellow, bright pops of colour. Much was made out of the visual ties to abstraction, following a recession of figurative forms elsewhere. Here we have a beautiful selection of the monochromatic works, which were in the National Gallery of Australia. A lot of these works, again, were in her wonderful exhibition, or wonderful body of work, at the Venice Biennale. But what you see through the outside of this is the extraordinary work, which is not in the Tate exhibition, but it's the National Gallery of Victoria's monumental work, which is Big Yam Dreaming. It is an 8-metre work that unfortunately we could not get for the Tate Modern because this work is travelling right throughout America. And this is just a really lovely depiction of how, sight lines work with her painting. So stripy works into, meandering lines is really extraordinary. So in Kngwarray, this is works from 1994 and 1993, 94. Kngwarray, like I said, passed away in 1996, but this is just a really gorgeous, view of how her works are just so modern. Now, I just wanted to bring us back quickly to collaboration. How do we know the meaning embedded in colour shifts? Yellow emu fat, green emu egg, the yellow, white's brown, ageing of the yam. How do we understand the specific reference to emu woman or Alokra suite, or the embodied knowledge within the striped paintings? We know through ongoing dialogue with Kngwarray's descendants, the custodians of this knowledge. Our work as curators, researchers, audiences rely on the fundamental and the respective practice. It's not about extracting information, it's about acknowledging where knowledge resides, honouring the artists, respecting their culture. So this is how we worked with the wonderful women on country. So not only by going and spending time with them on country, we also were fortunate that we had a benefactor who gave us a bit of money to spend a lot of time on country, but we also took some of the ladies to Perth. So the Janet Holmes Court has a major collection of Emily Kngwarrays, and as I said, Janet Holmes Court was the first to commission her work in 88, 89. So she owns the summer series. So in March of 2023, we took the ladies to Perth on a trip to have a look at the Janet Holmes Court collection. Now here we have three sisters here, so Jetta, Judy and Jean Kngwarray. And the women also were really excited because they had works in the summer series. So by giving back, the knowledge comes even further. So they get really excited by seeing their own works. We pulled out all of Kngwarray's batiks as well, but we also pulled out the batiks that Janet Holmes Court have in the collection of these ladies. So it was an absolute privilege to spend time travelling with them. And one thing I will say is that, you know, I have been doing and working with this exhibition for since 2002. And it's been an absolute honour and a privilege working and having the knowledge and spending time with the Kngwarray ladies. Their legacy is immense. You know, what they hold is extraordinary knowledge. Their ceremonies are absolutely beautiful, and you can also feel the presence of Kngwarray in that country. So visiting a Lolkra, when you go there, the first thing you do when you're on anyone's country, the first thing you do is you say hello to their ancestors and tell them that you are here and you're just going through in safe passage. But when you're actually at a Lolkra with the family are saying that Emily's presence is still within, you know, the beautiful rock face. So it's been really extraordinary to be a part of this journey. What I would say is that it doesn't end here. We're very fortunate that once this exhibition finishes here at the Tate Modern, we'll be taking it to a place called Lens in Switzerland. It is at a foundation called Foundation Opal. Lens is about 2.5 hours drive or in a train from Geneva. And we'll be taking not only this whole exhibition, but the owner of the foundation, Berger Primet, also owns quite a few Emily Kngwarray paintings. So we will be expanding on what we have with this exhibition, just like we expanded on what we did at the National Gallery of Australia exhibition. So it's another iteration, but with each iteration comes more community consultation. So any new work that we add to the exhibition will be taken back to the community. In March of 2023, we also did a women's camp. March is actually in the heat of Australia time in the summer. And so we went out to a Lolkra and spent 3 days doing a women's camp. There, the ladies painted up and performed a wulya, so women's ceremony of song and dance. What was really special about that moment was I mentioned right at the beginning that Dr. Jennifer Green had all this archival material that she gave to us or lent to us for this exhibition. And part of that archive was a song that she recorded, the Emu song that Emily Kngwarray sang back in 1973. And we brought that recording to this women's camp and we played the recording, and the women, while they were painting up, sang that song over and over and over again. And then they got up and performed that Emu Awulya song, which they had not performed for over 20 years. So it's, even though these women, I said, they had their language, nothing is lost, all their cultural knowledge is still there, but sometimes songs pass away with the senior custodian of that country, and that was Emily Kngwarray at that time. But we reintroduced that song to this family, and the women sang it, which was really extraordinary. This is a photo of the National Gallery exhibition. So again, we're standing in front of the extraordinary summer series. It's got the director, not ours, I don't work there anymore, the director of the National Gallery of Australia, but also Maria Belshaw. Maria came out for the National Gallery of Australia exhibition in Canberra, and that's where she negotiated with the director to bring this exhibition here to the Tate Modern. But what was really lovely is Maria also came out to Utopia and got to meet all of these extraordinary women. They are very proud, they are very loving, they are very generous with their knowledge. So it has been an absolute, like I said, honour for me to be a part of this. I spend a lot of time in Utopia. Utopia is only 350 kilometres away. That sounds like a lot for you guys, but it's 130 kilometres, you know, that's as fast as we go down one, you know, main road, and then it's off on the Sandover region. It was my birthday at this time, and this is a couple of months ago, and I went there and the ladies sang to me in language, which was really gorgeous. I went back there recently. You can sort of see this is the new art centre that has been built out in Utopia, and it's a tiny bit under construction. I went out there a month ago, and Utopia now has its very own functioning art centre. And why that is such a good thing is because the artists no longer have to find dealers or carpetbaggers or other people to paint for. They can actually just paint in their art centre and are represented by the art centre and the peak body organisation Desart. That means they're protected, they're paid properly, they have a safe place to work. Art centres on our communities are also the bank, welfare, childcare. They're massive air-conditioned facilities, state-of-the-art, beautiful places. Our art centres also give or, you know, produce. They get the canvas and they also get the paint. So when these ladies are all painting at the art centres, they all go home with rolls of paint, canvases and paint, and they go back to their homelands to paint and then bring their works back to the art centre. So it's really lovely to be able to go there and see how flourishing Utopia is. Because as I mentioned, when Emily Kngwarray was painting, she did not have an art centre and she was painting for all different galleries around town. A lot of text, but I'm just going to leave you with it. This is all the contributors who have worked on this exhibition. So Curator Hetty Perkins, my friend, my colleague, my mentor, myself, I don't know how I'm out there, but that's okay. Dr. Jennifer Green, who is an extraordinary woman, Stephen Gilchrist and Kimberly Moulton, Yorta Yorta Curator, adjunct curator here at the Tate Modern and sitting in the second row. I will be sitting on a panel with Kimberly is running a panel here tomorrow as well called Indigenous Futures and Body Knowledges. Yes. So I think that is time for me. I want to thank you all and thank you for putting up with me losing what track I'm up to, but I hope you enjoyed the lecture.
All right, thank you everyone for coming to tonight's absolutely extraordinary lecture. Before I release you, can I just ask you to once again, please put your hands together. That was a really fantastic lecture.